Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. In a previous video, I summarized what we know, or better at that time, what we didn't know back then about the new variant Omicron of the China bug. Now some time has passed and I think it is safe to make a couple of statements about this new ailment that everybody in the media and in politics at the moment is freaking out about. In my opinion, they have gone to the next level now. I already criticized them before that all these measures and all the rhetoric and these narratives that they put forth are completely over the top and are not really justified by the raw numbers, by the severity of this disease. So while that was my opinion already about the Delta or Alpha variant, now with Omicron, I think we reached truly the next level of insanity here. So here is my rant about this issue. But before we get into that, I want to thank all my supporters and my subscribers. Leave a like and subscribe to my channel if you find this material interesting or entertaining, and you can also find me on other social media platforms. If you want to support my channel, you can do so via Patreon or Subscribestar. Alright, so on Tuesday this week we had another one of these infamous meetings between the federal government and the states. The outcome was that Christmas is still okay, but after Christmas, from the 28th of December, a lot of very strict lockdown-like measures are also being enforced on the jabbed, not only on the unjabbed. Oh, isn't that interesting? And all the crazy, weird rules that we have so far are of course extended and they're not stopping. Even though the numbers are in free fall and the hospitals are getting empty again and so on and so forth. Every week we have way less infections than before and also less fatalities, of course. It is just interesting that the states, and that is our little city-states, Berlin, Bremen and Hamburg, they are the states in which we have rising numbers. In all the other states, we have falling numbers. Isn't that interesting? It must be this new variant. So it is weird that our media is not turning that into a big problem. Like these people in Hamburg, Berlin and Bremen, why are they not keeping the rules? What are they doing wrong? Why are they sinful all of a sudden? And people in Thuringia and Saxony and Bavaria, they are the ones who keep all the rules and who comply, and that's why the numbers go down, right? And even though the people in these city-states are jabbed at a much higher rate, somehow the hygiene gods are just ignoring this sacrifice and they're punishing them even though they complied. I don't understand this. And that is of course what they're all afraid of. This is what is being used now in light of these generally falling pandemic metrics here. They are scaring the people with this new Omicron variant, of course. That is always the explanation for these new rules and for these scare scenarios right now, as is the case in many countries, of course, not only in Germany. But at the moment we see that this new variant in Germany is estimated to be 0.6% of all the cases. But it is said to soon displace the older variants or the predominant variant that is Delta at the moment. So in my last video on the topic, I didn't just explain to you why it is called Omicron and not Xi and not new, but I also told you that we don't really know a lot about it, but nevertheless all the experts said that it is troublesome and worrisome, but we don't know anything. Yeah, that doesn't make sense at all. But now some time has passed and I think it is the right moment to look at the countries where this variant was active for a long time already and to look at what was going on there. And that is of course South Africa. We heard about Norway, we heard about the UK, about Denmark, and even the CDC. Yes, the CDC said that in the United States, in places such as New York, this variant was apparently active a long time already and was the predominant variant actually, and they just didn't know about it because they didn't really scan for it. They didn't check for the variant, they just ascribed everything to Delta so far. So let's look at South Africa once again. I mean, back then we already saw this spike in cases, but as you all know, the excess mortality or a ascribed mortality to this ailment always has some time delay with the spike in infections, of course. And now I think it is okay to estimate that there should be a 2-week delay between the two of them. That means roughly if you see a spike in infections, around 2 weeks later you should see a spike in fatalities, if that is actually a fatal thing, or if there are some people that die from it actually. This has roughly been the case so far in many countries with the older variants. And especially in 2020, I looked in detail at this phenomenon where I looked at these official numbers from the EU, for example, and I compared it to the excess mortality monitor that includes many European countries, and it was pretty clear that yes, it is a real thing, but it is not a super big contributor to excess mortality. It is comparable, or it was comparable, let's say, to a severe flu wave in many countries and to a minor flu wave for that matter in some other European countries, something in between. But my verdict was that yes, it is a serious, real disease that is comparable to the flu. But now when we look at these countries where the Omicron variant is dominant and we look at what the doctors who care for the patients in these countries, what they are saying, then we see that what are they describing really? They say, well, we had a sore throat and some headaches and some pain in our limbs, like some muscle pain in legs and arms or back maybe. A running nose, and we didn't feel so good, but after a week it was over. That is not an influenza, or that is not like an influenza, what you're describing here. What all these people seem to be describing is something that looks very, very familiar to the common cold. I want to point out here that I'm not saying it is the common cold, and I never said that the China bug is influenza. I'm saying they are in certain ways, in certain aspects, comparable to it, in severity or in the infectiveness or what have you. So they all say that Omicron is far more infective than Delta, but by everything that we know by now, it is also very, very mild. They all report mild symptoms. And we can look at the numbers from South Africa, for example. Yes, there is a huge spike in cases, but there is no spike in fatalities. Not even the official numbers like dying with and not from it. Even that, it doesn't show anything. So that means that people who were tested positive don't really die more often. That's what that means. Not in a significant way, at least, as it was with the other variants before, where it was mostly very, very old people or people with other pre-existing conditions where this virus was just enough to take them over the cliff, as is also the case for colds, for example. In a certain condition, yes, a cold can kill you, in fact. But is that a reason for panicking now? And bear in mind, they are pushing a certain group of pharmaceutical products on people now, and they're saying now that with this new variant, it is even more important that you take this substance. Booster here, booster there, and so on. But the funny thing is that they're telling us, these are the official statements from our government. They say that this pharmaceutical product is even less effective against this variant than against Delta, where it also didn't perform that well actually. So their solution to the problem is more distribution and even forced distribution of a pharmaceutical product that doesn't really work the way it is supposed to work. And that is just taking the craziness to another level. First of all, the symptoms are milder. That means that the thing that it is protecting us from, apparently, or is supposed to be protecting us against, is not so scary anymore, or is not scary by comparison at all, I would say. And then the second thing is that the substance that they're prescribing now, or that they're suggesting we take, is helping even less. And of course, there are protests against that in the population in Germany. For example, in Munich, there were people peacefully taking a walk through the city. Law enforcement confronted them and tried to hinder their path, but these around 5,000 people just walked past the officers, and they could just make their point and have their say in Munich this way. And this is really what happens when this is going on in many cities at the same time. The officers, the public servants that are supposed to control the people and to restrict their movement and to crack down on them, they are just overwhelmed by all these little fires that they're supposed to put out. They just can't deal with that many events around the same time. And when a lot of people take to the streets, then they just can't do anything anymore. Something that Germans, and especially people from central Germany, should still remember from '89. If there are many people just coincidentally taking a walk at around the same time, you cannot stop them anymore. Alright, I wish you all a Merry Christmas, of course, this year. You probably will be hearing from me again after Christmas, before New Year's. But of course, I will also celebrate with my family, because why really wouldn't I? Servus, Kameraden.